have signed an historic treaty to help save marine life in the wild west of our oceans, the high seas. High seas are basically anywhere beyond a country's exclusive economic zone, and you can see ours in red on this photo here. That is our exclusive economic zone. Beyond it, the high seas, making up more than 60% of the world's oceans. And get this, ocean ecosystems create half the oxygen that we breathe. So every time you're halfway through a breath, just think the ocean. Only 1%, this is the sad part, of the high seas are currently protected. Greenpeace Aotearoa Oceans campaigner Ellie is in New York City and has been at this meeting where the historic signing took place. Ellie, good morning, welcome, thanks for being with us.
Good morning, thanks for having me.
This is quite a big deal, isn't it? Tell us exactly what this is going to do, what this is going to help protect.
Yeah, it's really historic. It's an absolutely massive win for the ocean and for everybody and everything that relies on it. What happened this week at the UN was a treaty was agreed to that will give us the ability to create protected areas in the high seas, as you just mentioned. And that's something that we know we've got to do. We know that we need to protect 30% of the ocean by 2030 if we want to avoid the worst of the climate and biodiversity crisis. And this treaty has essentially opened up a pathway for us to create those protected areas because a way to do it didn't exist before this.
Right.
So it's really, really monumental.
And it's big countries too, isn't it? I mean, it's us, it's the United States, it's China. They're all saying, yes, we agree, the 30 by 30, but it doesn't yet say how and where.
No, that's correct. So the treaty really gives us the ability to create these protected areas. It doesn't actually designate where they should be. But that work has been going on in parallel. And so there are kind of ecologically and biologically significant areas that have been identified that have been flagged as priorities for protection. So once we get this treaty actually in place, we can start with the hard work of actually getting these highly protected areas done.
And we're going to protect it from mining, like deep mining. Also shipping lanes, which affect wildlife, those sorts of things, right?
Yeah, totally. So what's really amazing about this agreement is we wanted the ability to create these protected areas where multiple threats could be outlawed. At the moment, the system that you've got regional bodies that deal with industry-specific issues. So, for instance, you've got a fishing organisation. They can close an area of the ocean to fishing if they see it getting depleted. But, for instance, in theory, mining could still happen there, shipping could still happen there. And what we know about protected areas is that they are the most efficient and they have the best conservation outcomes when we outlaw all human threats from them. That allows that area to recover and thrive properly, and that has spillover effects into the surrounding ocean too. So it doesn't just benefit that particular area of ocean, it will continue into the rest of it.
So this is sort of like the gold-plated protection for, and if you're going to protect the oceans, this is how you want to do it. The sticking point for me is interesting. This is the marine genetic resources. We've been fighting over who would get the benefit from marine genetic resources. Are we talking here about like fish oil, or new particles that we might find in a fish that might benefit human health?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's a very complex issue, and it's quite abstract. But marine genetic resources, it's essentially any kind of genetic material that is gathered from those high seas areas. And I think the argument is that because we're talking about high seas areas here, we're not talking about waters that fall under particular country's jurisdiction. Anything that's found there that can kind of benefit humankind or that can be commercialized, the benefits from that should actually be shared equally around the world. And I think most people can agree that that makes logical sense, but it was a sticking point in this treaty. What's incredible is that in the end, countries did show a real spirit of compromise, and they found an agreement on this in order for us to get it across the line.
That's interesting. So up until now, if you discovered a new species of fish in a particular part of the ocean that was in the high seas and it had pharmaceutical benefits for humans, you could basically just fish that and take the benefits for yourself. Under this treaty, if it's in a protected area, the benefits of that must be shared amongst all of the signatories.
That's right. Apart from it's not just about the protected area. So this treaty is even more historic than the protected area thing. It also has several other sections about how we treat the rest of the ocean, so the remaining 70%. So the marine genetic resources section was not just based on what happens in an MPA. It's based on if you gather that marine genetic material from anywhere in the international ocean, yes, you should have to share it for scientific and monetary benefit of all.
Fascinating. Thanks so much for being with us and for celebrating what is an historic day. As you say, though, still a lot of water to go under the bridge yet. Greenpeace Aotearoa Oceans campaigner Ellie with us from New York this morning.